Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel Episode 3. Most important part of this video is me pulling this back out there. There we go. Anyway, so, yeah, this episode was the classic tale. Guy changes himself to get the girl, gets the girl, turns out she's crazy. I mean, actually that's kind of the episode, except like the dumbed down, you know, Barney and Friends version of it. It's pretty generic stuff, honestly. I mean, it wasn't awful, like I wasn't clawing my eyes out, except when Victor and Monty were on. And I've been trying to avoid mentioning them, to even just acknowledge them. But I really hated their bit at the beginning of this episode where he was doing quick changes. It was just, I know this is a show, obviously, with, you know, crazy stuff. This is a hero show. I was gonna call it superheroes, but that's kind of a stretch, isn't it? Like, you know, because there's like actual, like, can we really put these group of like preschool idiots right now in Ninja Steel on the same level of like Superman or Spider-Man? I don't think so. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Victor and Monty. I hated this bit where they did a quick change because it was so cartoony. Because my point about that is this is a crazy world where I'm not like, oh, well the science of that monster growing doesn't check out. But when you do super cartoony stuff like that in any live action show where it's not like a super out there comedy, it takes you out of the moment, and it was too far. Their whole thing is too far. But that's the only thing I wanted to say, is that like this storyline bit especially was awful. But anyway, yeah, this episode was pretty generic. It largely revolved around Levi being the target of Madame Odious' evil plan to basically catfish him for this monster, to get him to sing a song where he would hypnotize himself. It's like, could you not just come up with a potion or like a dust or a spell that you can do, but you have to make him sing it? It seemed so overly complicated. Like, it would seem like an overly complicated Dr. Evil plan, and I could just picture Scott Evil, like, excuse me, heckling this in the back. It was kind of stupid. And then even the girl, like, made Levi sing it in public, like, and so people were like, oh, this is awful, boo. I'm like, why did she have to do it in public? Why not be like, oh, let's go to my garage or something? I don't know. Like, I guess so that you could have that scene, but it was stupid, and like the parts of the song that were like an obvious spell were obvious, and then there was, yes, I know there was a Ninja reference. I didn't think it was, I don't think a lot of the way that they reference the source in the last few seasons are very clever. I think they've had clever call-outs in the past. Like, I always point out, which it wasn't necessarily a call-out they planned, but I always liked that they decided to use the Go On Your Van, and like, instead of trying to ignore it or like explain it in a stupider way, like they kind of poked fun at the fact that this says Go On Your on it and stuff like that. But I don't know. I find the callouts to be really cheap for some reason, but there was a little ninja reference with, was it Ninpo Kinji, which is like, you know, Ninpo is like ninja stuff from Ninja. I almost said Shurikentra, that's just a guy. And Kinji is the name of Star Ninja in Ninja, who is Levi's counterpart. Countertop? He's his countertop. But yeah, so it was just really generic. I mean, and then the whole thing boiled down to, I mean, she was successful, so we got a little bit of a fight scene, and they're like, don't hurt him. It's like, okay, I get the scenes where they hypnotize civilians or something. They're like, don't hurt the civilians. It's like, okay, but come on. I'm not saying hurt Levi, but I'm saying you don't need to hold back that much. You know that he's in the suit, and you got to protect people from him. I mean, there wasn't people around. You know what I mean? It just seemed ridiculous. Like, anyway, I was just thinking back to other like shows where, like, you know, I don't know, Supergirl's fighting Superman, and Superman's hypnotized. She's not going to be like, oh, I better not hurt him. She's like, yeah, I gotta stop him. He's Superman, you know. But anyway, the whole episode wound up boiling down to, again, another lesson, like, just be yourself, which is just terrible advice. I mean, not in all situations, but basically don't lie on your Tinder profile. That's what they're saying. Or your Match.com profile. Or don't make a Match.com profile. Because they always put the pretty people in the commercials, and then you go on there, and I presume it's just not pretty people. Because, yes. But anyway, this has been an all over the place review, but I mean, that's the best I can say about these last few episodes. They're just generic. I wouldn't say they're awful, but they're not good. They're generic. And You know, the core problem of so many of the last few years' focus episodes is, I've talked about this before, in that when I complain about filler, filler doesn't need to be bad. And oftentimes in PR especially, filler is usually used to flesh out a character or have us get to know the characters. Like in the early parts of every season, in this case that would be original Ninja Steel, even if we're not learning anything about the character, like a change or a story arc, usually it feels a little fresher because we don't know the characters at all, so any time with them seems new. But usually, like, the first parts of a season are getting to know the characters, and usually Power Rangers filler episodes are used to either let us learn something new about them or have them go through some sort of arc within the matter of an episode or 2 episodes. But the problem with Ninja Steel and even Dino Charge a lot and before is that the focus episodes aren't about learning anything about these guys. It's about using them as a vehicle for a really outdated, archaic, generic lesson. And I've said this before, but I wish that when PR tries to teach lessons, it came across as more of a message, because I've seen shows both for kids and adults that are able to sort of impart some sort of wisdom, but it doesn't feel like they're reading from the Hallmark Barney book of lessons to teach kids. It more across is something you just sort of pick up on via the storyline. So I feel like they need to learn to do that, to make it seem organic. Because, again, I know sometimes this can sound like, from me and others, like, well, it's a kid's show, so you're not understanding the way it's supposed to come off. But when I was a kid, this annoyed me. When I was a kid, the shows would be like, don't lie! And I would be like, to hell with you, I'm gonna lie, just because they told me not to lie. I hated when it felt like they were preaching to me. Like, even when I was little. So that's carried with me. And Power Rangers has honestly never been good at that in a lot of ways, and I think they need to come up with a way to, like I said, make it feel organic. And also, they need to know it's okay to not teach a lesson every episode. You don't have to come here and after-school specialists on Saturdays every week. It's okay to have an episode or 2 that are just about story. You know, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that Power Rangers always needs to be used as a teaching vehicle. But I'm just saying it doesn't always have to be that. You can still want to impart lessons and messages into your show, but it doesn't have to be every week, because it starts to almost feel like a video kids have to watch to learn stuff. And again, like I mentioned with last week's lesson, so many of the lessons, just the way they black and white apply them just don't work. Like a lot of the lessons you're taught as a kid in TV shows either are not applicable or have to be augmented. And that's kind of the case here too, but that was kind of a long rant. But the point is, I don't mind if PR tries to impart some wisdom. Just make it feel organic and don't feel like you're talking down to me. Like, it doesn't feel like I just watched a story that inspired me to change a way I act. It feels like they pulled out a book that says, like, keys to being a good person, as written by a 7-year-old and their preschool teacher, Molly. I don't know, that was random. But yeah, overall, very generic episode. I would probably give it a 6, I guess. But I think we're pretty much in for episodes like these. I was thinking before I started filming this that I think we're in for generic episodes like these until we get an event. But even events in this series aren't really like an event episode. It's more like a filler episode like this, but we get a Zord at the end because reasons. So I get a feeling this is going to be the status quo until we get to an episode that could be considered at least something close to an event. Anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Dawson Ryder, signing out.